Cool shirtless. Yes, Pam. Okay. Yes. It's freaking hot here. It's really hot here. It's hot everywhere, including where my guest is from. It's ungodly hot in a lot of different places. The world is, we are plummeting towards the sun as we speak. Okay. All right. I'm just going to bring him in because no, wait. Okay. Hold on. Let's all calm down. Everybody take a deep breath. Yes, I am shirtless because it's freaking hot where I am in Puglia, Italy. I want to read a little intro before I bring my guest so that you guys can get a little bit of info on this very, very extremely special person, not just in the universe, but in my life as well, which is more important than the universe. But no, I'm kidding. Okay. My guest is Leigh McCloskey, otherwise known as Leigh J. McCloskey. From his acting days, he has to put the J in there for whatever reason. We'll ask him when he comes in. But Leigh McCloskey is a modern Renaissance man, as am I, but Leigh has the Renaissance man thing off the charts. He is an artist, he is an author, a mega author, actor, visual, hermetic philosopher. That phrase alone is amazing, and we'll let him describe what that is. His life, career, and art reveal in beauty and the meaning and the devotion to the ideal of cultivating Renaissance and imaginative rebirth through shared enthusiasm for the more interesting and inspiring stories of being human. Leigh has enjoyed a long career in Hollywood as a professional actor, starring in numerous TV and film productions, which is where we will start our conversation when he comes in. In 2005, and this is mega important, I must emphasize, Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones selected Leigh's art to tour with the Rolling Stones for their A Bigger Bang tour. More recently, art from his illuminated books, The Codex, Tor, T-O-R, formed the visuals for Flying Lotus' highly acclaimed album, Cosmogramma. He's written, illustrated, and published 7 books, as well as many articles. Leigh's hermetic masterwork of art and writing, Tarot Revisioned, Tarot Revisioned, was reviewed as quite possibly the most significant contribution to the tradition in over 100 years. There is a block of information and too much to go through. I would rather just bring this extraordinary human being in live so you guys can meet him. He is literally one of my most dear, if I can count 5 people in my life that have been most influential and most special to me, he is all 5. Mr. Leigh McCloskey, I'll bring you in, my friend. The countdown is here. Welcome.
Thank you, Ron. It is, oh, it's so great to see you, and you as well. I tell you, a true brother, and we have known each other since our Hearts in Armor days.
Our Hearts in Armor days. Leigh, today, before we get into that, I visited an underground museum/church that has been in Puglia for the church where I visited today was there many years before Christ.
Wow.
And the symbols, the crosses of the Knights Templar are there. Yeah. They found them in there because they hid a lot of their artifacts and things in this location that I was in today. And I couldn't help but think of you because we walked back in this little part of the tunnel, and I put on my cell phone light because it was completely dark and not illuminated. And we found this Knights Templar cross on the wall, painted on the wall, that has been there since before Christ. And when they found this, when the archaeologists found this, they just went, whoa, holy, wow, what have we found here? And they excavated a lot of stuff. So from that, I introduce you, my friend, because you and I met doing what?
Playing knights in armor, Moorish princes, and romantic figures in a far-off land of Orlando Furioso. We met in the most extraordinary time. We were both, I mean, it was an extraordinary production, extraordinarily beautiful. I had a suit of armor. I've never felt more comfortable in my life. And it was an extraordinary time of meeting you, really, and becoming lifelong friends, along with Rick, which isn't necessarily what happens on productions. We're very close, but we certainly don't form continual friendships that, as you say, have a really profound influence on us. And our brother relationship over the years, our families are playing together, traveling together, working together. It's been, I just think, an extraordinary journey of something that started as two actors in a remarkable opportunity, and really over the years became two people that grew to, as you with the church this morning, to find wonder in discovery, to allow things to move us.
Absolutely. You know? Absolutely. I will introduce you as the person that not only allowed me to visualize what a successful couple raising kids looks like, which allowed me to finally let go of all my predisposition about raising kids and the fact that I did not care about having kids. I didn't care about any of that stuff, to going, I can do this.
And you did it beautifully. And you do it beautifully. That's what I found, is that I felt the same way as you did. When it was about before having children, I don't know, the world's falling apart, it's going to hell in a handbag. I want to bring children. And a light went on. It was, these are not the appropriate questions. And I love, and I've always been honored that you look to Carla and I and our relationship as an inspiration, because to me, that's the truth of what we do for each other. It's not to teach or train or correct one another, but to inspire each other, and to do so by saying, you know what, this is possible. And it's more interesting.
I had several experiences. Two I will share with all of you guys. One was being with Leigh's second daughter out in front of their house, and she's walking on a wall about 2 feet off the ground, but a 2-year-old child walking on a wall is a very precarious thing. So she's walking. She takes a couple steps and she falls. She's falling down on the wall. I did one of those superhuman movements.
Dad move.
I moved a dad move. I moved about 10 feet in 2 seconds, not even 2 seconds. And I literally caught her head before it hit the pavement.
Wow.
And I hit the ground so hard that it took the wind out of me. And her head hit my hand, and she got up, bounced up and went in the house. And I lay there for about 10 seconds going, oh, that hurt. Oh my God, that hurt.
No,
It had such a profound impact.
Yeah.
It had such a profound impact of, if I had not been there, what her head would have hit the pavement.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's number one. The second one was Leigh's first child, Caitlin, was on the rug in their living room upstairs, and she was trying to roll over at 9 months. I don't even know what age, to learn how to crawl. So I got down on my hands and knees in front of her and everybody else, and I crawled for her. And within about 2 minutes, she looked at me, rolled over, and got up on her arms and knees and crawled. And Carla and Leigh are going, oh my God, she just, it was like, I just showed, what just happened? So this is two of many experiences that happened that showed me, and I went, I can do this. I can do this. Maybe I might be successful at doing this. But Leigh had 2 daughters. I wound up having 2 daughters.
Yes.
But I attribute my ability to even do that to this man and this woman, his lovely wife Carla, right there.
And you taught our oldest to crawl, and we've been Carla had the good sense to get our videos transferred electronically, so we've been watching the old videos, and you're in so many of them. And what I love to watch is how much fun we had.
We do.
Started to make family and private life. And I found this also when I was doing General Hospital and other shows where the family structure was really strong with the actors. It was like that was their center. And so they came to work and it was much healthier. It wasn't about a lot of things that people get into. It was much more about the base was a sense of relationship and responsibility. And it made the professional life really, I really found the times I enjoyed most were with the people like ourselves that said, you know what, this is great, but let's get the family involved. Let's go to the beach. Let's take a long walk.
Let's go back and give everybody tuned in with us right now,
right,
who maybe have not followed the progression of your career or know everything about you, there's far too much to know in this broadcast we're going to do. I will give you guys the link to go and find out a lot more. You're going to want to. But Leigh started out as an actor, as a poet, as a very creative person, but he started out as an actor. I'm just going to give this as, because it's a generality that seems to work. He was this character on the original Dallas TV show. The character was named Mitch.
Yeah.
Mitch what?
Cooper. Mitch Cooper.
Mitch Cooper. He was married to Charlene Tilton's character, and the two of them were the 2 young kids on the show. And you did that for how long? For 2, 3, 4.
And I came back.
Years.
And then yeah. So really 2 seasons and then sporadic.
So starting out on Dallas, but Leigh did many feature films that you guys can look up and watch. They're very cute. Many of them have become sort of teen cult favorites. I shouldn't say teen, but they're cult favorites of movies that were done when movies were just sort of young kids having fun type of stuff, you know. Yeah. But Leigh, I don't accentuate that because Leigh is such, again, I know a handful of people that I consider true artists, really true artists. Leigh is number one. Leigh is that true artist that you cannot poke holes in it. You cannot dispute it. He lives it. He breathes it. It emits from every pore in his body. Angelique happened to say, cool chair. Well, what you guys don't know is that every frickin' thing in the room that he's in right now has been painted by Leigh, even his furniture. He went on a rampage and painted all the books that line the room. I freaked out when I came over because I went, what did he do?
Lost his mind.
He's lost his fucking mind. And then I realized that he has painted over the covers, the plastic covers of each of these meticulously preserved art books. But he painted over the covers because it fit in with the vibe that he wanted to do. Leigh is a workaholic artist. He is Picasso without being named Picasso. He is constantly making art. He has made so much stuff. That's why I'm imploring you guys. I will let him speak as soon as I finish my diatribe. He is. You must look up him and look at what he's done. It will fascinate you guys, and it's beyond the charts. We can't possibly cover one iota, one little millimeter of what Leigh does and the information that he has. I can tell you guys honestly, he has a room full of art books and philosophy and theosophy books, and he knows all of them. He can tell you where the book is, where the information is, and what's in the book. It's amazing. This upstairs room of his is an art museum in itself, and to visit it is an experience that you will come away with your mouth open and what did I see here? What happened? What just happened? So that said, my friend, we met on a movie. You said 1982. I think it's actually 1981 when we actually did the movie.
Oh, yeah.
It was released in 1982, but we filmed it in 1981. He and his wife, Carla, she was 7 months pregnant with their first daughter. Yeah. And she was trekking up Mount Etna in Sicilia, Sicily, Italy. Yes. Well, Italy, Sicily. Mount Etna is the largest active volcano in the world. And we were filming right on the crater, this wonderful Christians versus the Saracens story, Orlando Furioso, based on the fable of Orlando Furioso. But it's true history of the Christians versus the Saracens. Leigh played one of the leaders of the Christians, and I, oddly enough, played one of the leaders of the Saracens, the Moors. They call them the Moors. My skin probably should have been a little darker than it was, but we'll throw it to the wind. But we became lifelong friends, and I have nothing but admiration. And this man is a true mystic, a true theosopher, and he has lectures at his house a few times a week now where people congregate. Maybe he does it online now. Yeah. But for years and years, people would congregate at his wonderful home in Malibu, and they would have a discussion about many, many different things. So, okay, that was one hell of an introduction. I should stop talking. You're the one that always talks. You're the one that always talks, and I can't shut up.
Well, I have to say, though, your enthusiasm and effusiveness, to me, this is what I have come to so deeply honor, is its aliveness. Yeah, and that's why my art, all of the things that I have done privately, I never did to impress others. I was always gathering, saying, the world says I'm not interested, but if you're interested, then say, well, I am. That's enough for me. And don't try to convince other people they should be. I've learned that the hard way. But open up a space and say, let's get together. And if you're interested in these things, you know what? Like gardeners, let's plant some seeds. Let's grow some ideas together. And that's why I started the discussion groups, actually, when I was doing Dallas, because I realized a lot of actors, as you know, they start to get bitter because, this isn't what it's supposed to be. And and I looked at it differently. I looked at it from really the old Renaissance ideal of a patron. that an artist needs a patron, because essentially to follow the creative muse, so to speak, is no way to make money. and so the patron came along and said, well, I'll pay for your materials and you paint your paintings for me. And I felt this with Hollywood. I felt that I wasn't there to correct Hollywood or tell it what was wrong with it. In a way, I didn't think that it was like shouting at the weather. It was what it was. But it sort of, I asked myself a question, well, how can I create balance with this? And that's when it really did strike me. And it was from history. It was from the American Transcendentalist, William Blake, but even from my dad, who was one of the founders of the Malibu Art Association. I had grown up in a home where creative people came and imaginative people. And my dad would say, creative people, imaginative people have to get together and inspire each other, remind each other, because the world critiques us. And I say about creative people, they don't need your help with a critique. They're doing that for themselves. What they need is encouragement to say, you know what? We can even explore this more deeply. We can trust a little more greatly. And that's why, sort of to bring this full circle, everything became about my home, as you know, about balancing the outer life and career with this sense of, let me not overlook that where I live and who I love is of the first order, and what I do and the career I pursue is of the second order, meaning let it hopefully allow us to eat and keep our home, but I won't make it about chasing after that. I will make it about honoring this. And I think that made all the difference. And I'm at that point in my life now where I can see the outcome.
When you were ensconced in Hollywood, how did that feel? With, I know you in such a way that you don't follow the norm of anything, and you certainly didn't follow the norm reactions and all the bullshit involved in Hollywood. Right. How was it possible for you to do that and sort of keep yourself intact?
I think I've always been very introspective, very sort of not the outer world is. It's almost like that's the ocean, but I'm the vessel that has to navigate it. And to a great degree, I'd almost say that I was more brooding. I was more internalized, especially when I was studying at Juilliard as an actor. And, so I brought this with me. And I have to say, what transformed my life was Carla. Quite literally, if I can say I am who I became because I met Carla. People look at my art and they say, hey, wow, did you take drugs? And I go, I didn't need to get further out. My imagination was already well beyond left field. What I needed to do was to find Carla, meaning to have roots, to have that which created responsibility for another. And the realization that through this relationship, I began to, in a way, balance myself much more. And then with children, as they came, it pulled me into a different part of who and what I was. And I think that's why Hollywood, I could never see myself as they saw me, in a sense. The closest I got to that was when I did Max Factor's California for Men, because I was the male spokesman to Jacqueline Smith and Jane Seymour for California for Women and Jardin de Max Factor. And it was interesting because it taught me about, I said it was like being taught by the court, like what type of shoes is somebody wearing? Where are they being seated? What are the, and I didn't take it personally. Again, I started to look at it as living theater. So I was ready to, in a way, understand more of the things that I didn't know early on, because I had, I in a way had grown or matured to realize that when I walked into an office, I used to confuse people because I had this other side, this much deeper side, and they'd look at this, this surfer guy, this good-looking guy, going, and Jay Bernstein, my manager years and years and years ago, he said, Leigh, people want you to look like you and be like them. And it clicked. I went, I'm going to give a place for this other side of myself, this deeper inquiry. But I won't assume that the world is looking for that conversation, and it helped me, because it helped me to be able to, in a way, cultivate two qualities and not blame one for the other, and not overreact. That's why in my discussion groups for 39 years, I've never allowed it to become political and really sociological. It is, let's deal with ideas that inspire us to create a larger view. And this is what the artist in us wants to do, breathe.
You and I have had many conversations about many different things, and I always go to you as kind of the guru of philosophy, of rational thinking, of just because I've had many times in my life where I've fallen apart, and I'm trying to make sense of the world around me. And I remember our walks on the beach in Malibu, where I would just go, Leigh, fucking help me with this dilemma. I feel real conflicted about what's going on and all that.
Yeah.
And I remember one joke that you told me one time about gurus, about going to see the wise man in the cave on the hill.
Yes.
You know where I'm going?
Yeah.
And the man wanted to find out what the meaning of life was. So he spends years going to find this guy in a cave, the guru, who's going to tell him the meaning of life. I want you to complete the story.
and he finally, he gets to the high mountains, and he has to climb up there, and he's struggling to get up, and he climbs. He's almost half dead by the time he gets to the guru, and he sees him, and he says, Guru, I've been told you can tell me the secret of life. What is the secret? And the guru says, life is a deep well. The guy says, life is a deep well? Life is a deep well? I spend all of my money. I get all the way up here. I'm almost dead, and life is a deep well? And the guru looks at him and goes, life isn't a deep well?
I don't know why that struck me. That set me into a different universe of consciousness, because
life isn't a deep well. I've always felt that that's the truth. It's like, doesn't need to be. I almost feel like that gets you over belief. You don't need to believe it. As a matter of fact, I feel with acting, we're taught suspension of disbelief, right? If you play Hamlet,
yes,
you know you're not Hamlet. But if you don't know you're Hamlet when you're playing Hamlet, you're not going to be very good. So to me, you don't believe you're Hamlet. That would be crazy. You allow yourself to not, in a way, to suspend your disbelief. Almost like you'd say you give yourself permission to pretend. And in that, you allow the ideas to change, not being stuck with one point of view. There are keys on the piano, so to speak.
You guys, Leigh has been I can't, there's so much. I don't even know where to begin, or certainly not to end. And all the in the middle is so much that I'm at a loss for words. It's strange. It's strange. Let me talk about your artwork for a little bit, because that has been such a major part of your life and your expression, and it has affected a lot of people because of the way it is. And I implore everybody to look up Leigh McCloskey. I'll put his name up again so you can get the spelling. He's on YouTube as well. You can look up so many things. There are so many links and things that we can't even possibly express here. So I implore you guys to look up and just be fascinated. Just open up your mind to the fascination of what Leigh has done. It's too heady to even get into on in a few minutes. So we cannot describe. If somebody asks Leigh, okay, tell me who you are and what you do, and no, not going to happen. Not going to happen. The artwork behind him and the artwork that he has done throughout the years is nothing less than amazing. And I'll tell you one little funny thing about his artwork. When he was painting that room that he is in, he also painted the floor.
Yeah.
He painted the furniture. He painted the chair, the couch, the books, the wood. Everything in the room is painted because it's like he didn't sleep. He didn't sleep for about 7.5 months. And during that 7.5 months that he didn't sleep, he had a paintbrush and some paint, and he just went crazy. This will not do it justice of what you're actually looking at. If you're there, it's unbelievable. So he painted the floor. I'll cut to it. One day, we happened to be exposed to 3D glasses.
Yeah.
And we put them on, and everybody realized, Leigh realized, the floor had a depth of about 1.5 feet from the way he had painted it. We didn't even know this. And the room just got twice as big. It was one of those amazing sort of things that happened from his art, of the way he paints. He has paint boards, what you call them, palettes.
Yeah.
That have probably 1 pound, 2 pounds of paint that is just dried on them, and they've become art pieces in themselves. Oh, that makes me laugh. It's like a geographical map.
Welcome to the continent of pigment.
I can't even imagine the expense.
Oh, that's so
paint on that board right there.
No, I always felt that my palette.
If you guys knew,
not my paintings.
Oh yeah. My God, that's so
I like
funny.
to say, out of this chaos came these paintings. Let's see, can you see them?
And they are everywhere.
Up above.
It's hard. That's why I'm expressing. People have to go to your website to check out what these paintings are, because they're phenomenal. You will expand your mind just looking at them, as we all have over the years. And I gotta say, Leigh, I love you. And I'm going to go back 30 or 35 years to when we would have discussions. And Leigh would start in talking about something esoteric, spiritual, theosophy, and all. And we would sit there and our eyes would roll back in our heads because there was too much information.
Oh, yeah.
He has too much information. He's like a walking encyclopedia of theosophy, philosophy, many different art. Yeah. Okay. But I finally just said, Leigh, you got to give a little less information at a time, because we can't absorb what's in your head. Your head is expanded to a place that most people cannot absorb in 2 or 3 hours. You have to take more time.
Yes.
I love you for that, my friend. I love you.
Well, yeah, and this is something that over the years, it's very true, because the question is, how do you say briefly, rather than go forever looking for something, which is what I realized the discussion groups helped with over the years. Because 39 years of discussion group, you start to really understand where you communicate more effectively, but also you start to sense the level of interest from a person, and why. It's that question of, well, how can you say the same thing in a language that this person will appreciate, rather than expecting them, which is what I did because of my studies in those days. I always thought, well, I could bring people into that. And I started to understand as I got older more about the theater sense. Like, no, it's creating the conditions where people go, oh yeah, that's I get it, that. And to me, this is why I know I'm an actor and why I came through theater, because the relationship to metaphysics, esotericism, religion, all of these other traditions, they're usually taken piously, seriously, spiritually, so to speak. And the theater says you're a role in a larger conversation. So enjoy the part you're playing, so to speak, but recognize the play. So I wanted to always create a place where the play could be, and that you would see it, we would see it as friends, we'd see it. that we really do amplify each other. And that's why a lot of the long no, I remember I found myself realizing, Leigh, there are certain things that you came in absolutely fascinated with. Other people came in with a little interest, but not a huge interest. So bring it down.
One thing that I wanted to express was how amazing you and Carla have always been. Leigh's wife, Carla, she worked on films as a first AD mostly, right? Or production person.
First AD, second.
She's worked on many, many movies that you guys all know. And Carla is one of those troopers that she was, again, 9 months pregnant with their second child, going back to work on a film as the first AD or second AD. And they had an actress on the set who was feeling a little perplexed and a little tired and all. And she was demanding a little more attention, and Carla came up 9 months pregnant and said, what do you need? She goes, I don't know. I just feel like I need, I'm tired and all. Can you get me this? And Carla goes, yeah, just a minute. I'll be right back. And she runs off 9 months pregnant. This is Carla. Never a complaint, never anything. And I think the woman didn't realize that the woman she was asking was 9 months pregnant until she saw her and looked at her and went, oh, for God's sakes, I'm a complaining bitch. And this woman just ran off to get me some innocuous bullshit thing.
Right.
And I think it was a lesson, but Carla has always been like that. You guys have been married how many years now?
42 years. We just celebrated on August 19th, our 42nd anniversary.
What a lead-in is that?
Well, and what is...
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I did. I married a Viking goddess, as I like to say. She's great in battle, not terribly great in the kitchen, but still, just... no, she actually... What is great? She's a good cook. I'm just kidding. But what is just not much interest in it. But she is an extraordinary being. I really feel like when the fires came to our door, the Woolsey Melville Park fire 2 years ago, and we were the only ones that stayed to defend our home, and the cops came racing up saying it's a mandatory evacuation, everyone out. And Carla's on the front lawn saying, if my husband's not leaving, no. I'm not leaving, and he's not leaving. And I thought nothing defined the heroic character of Carla, who, as you say, worked as an assistant director first and second years ago, then a first assistant production manager. She was actually a director on the Gilmore Girls. And something in all of this, this capacity to be in charge and yet able to be gracious, as you talk about, and not to be combative, but by example to show, like with this woman, there's something you're not paying attention to. So I really, you're very right. I feel that this is the great relationship that I even wrote about it for our anniversary. I called it Destiny, because I realized that there is an element of destiny when
everybody is saying happy anniversary to you guys.
Thank you.
And I always said, I've said it many times to Devin, Leigh and Carla are the prototype for a couple, a successful couple. And if something ever happens to Leigh and Carla, this will be the end of humanity as we know it. That's because we cannot all exist if these two people are not together. So
that's, well, I love crushing burdens like that, because I feel this is what we are for each other, though. It's like, it's the key for me is simply because we can, not because we ought to. Let us strive to be the better version of ourselves. And that, to me, is also what this is about in this day and age, which is about learning to trust what we love to honor the difficulty. It's not getting out of anything, but to honor the difficulty as one does weather. It doesn't define us. It challenges us to realize that we are much more capable than we think. Because what I love about love is you're not against each other. You're in it together. And I rather feel, and this is what I felt during the fire, I felt nature, the deep love of nature and the garden and the trees, that nothing wants to die. You know, that we all want to live, all qualities of life want to live. And I really do feel that for Carla and I feel what we've always shared, Ron, is this love of life, this absolute enthusiasm for, wow, for all the difficult, wow.
Please go in a little more to what happened during the fires for everybody who does not live in California. A few years ago, we had horrendous fires that just went through and destroyed a big part of Malibu and the beach area, and even more. It was one of our worst fires ever. And it centered where Leigh and Carla live. And again, what you said, you did not leave, even though it was mandatory evacuation. Everybody else evacuated. Many houses around you were completely obliterated, but you guys said, we're going to stay and save this energy. It wasn't just a physical house. It was much more than that. It was a physical energy that you guys have created, and you were not going to let that go. And just give a little philosophy, because I believe that the mindset that you both had saved you more than just the physicalness of what happened.
I do too. And this is why I've actually written about it, and I posted on Facebook a couple of things. One was about the fires and times of judgment, which was from direct experience of the archetype of the fire of judgment, the last judgment, quite literally. It was an apocalyptic fire. And in it spoke to me directly. It showed up, and I grew up 2 miles from here. So we learned when I was a boy, you don't leave because there is no backup, so to speak. You're on your own. Especially when I was a boy, this was really rural, and it still is. That's what people think. It's, oh, there's all this, but really all of the infrastructure collapsed. There were no fire engines. There were not the only police. The fire bombers were supposed to show up. They never did. And the fire that reached our door as fire tornadoes. And as a matter of fact, I opened my door and I was punched back. There was a moment of stillness and absolute blackness and red embers falling. It was very surreal and very calm. And then, like going back into fast motion, I was thrust back into the house, really tossed back into the house. But something in me shifted. And this was very important. I think it's important for all of us to know, is because we think of ourselves as our waking self, but something very primal in me was triggered. And I came right back at the fire. And it became this long, really these many days and nights of having to hold a type of inner calm and hold the space as everything was uncertain, and the fire was a monster, and the things did not go on and on about it. But Carl and I were alone, and that it burned around us. The houses across the street were on fire, the ones up the street. And as a matter of fact, we had 240 neighbors and 180 of them burned to the ground. And it was devastating. And the fire told me, and I even wrote about it, you know, we're neighbors, even if we were never meant to be friends. And the fire told me that the human heart has grown dry and brittle, that it knows what it hates, but has forgotten what it loves. And that the fire said, I am that which will seek out and destroy this lack of love. I will bring us, community, to its knees. And it was not a forgiving energy. It was a harsh energy. That's why my work on the tarot I found so important, because my work on the archetypes, on judgment, the tower, death, temperance, these qualities But if we think of them like tsunami, hurricane, flood, electrical storms, why are these enormous forces that we have no control over? What are they teaching us? And that's what the fire was. It was this extraordinary experience of being in the middle of what could only be described as a type of Dante-like hell, where everything is on fire, and you are never allowed to really relax. But at the same time, and this is most important, I'll end with this, 2 o'clock in the morning on the first night, and I'm exhausted. I hear, because I finally take a breath, and I hear inwardly, do you feel everyone's prayers for you and Carla and Olendar? Olendar is in the name of my home. And I did. And it was extraordinary because I was, as an actor, you always say, oh, do you feel it? And, it's like, when you're doing improv, you go yes and, not no, but you don't really necessarily feel it. This I felt palpably. I felt a prayer field around us. I even saw a type of dome over our home. And what's very interesting is that that's how the fire ended. That was the footprint of the fire. It seemed to burn around this dome. And that's why I tried to tell everybody, because we think prayer is, it's just making this up. It has no relevance. But if we think on a quantum level, a level of energy and intention, we start to realize that in a time of crisis, when everything falls away because you have nothing else to think about. As a matter of fact, you're not even thinking. You're not in that mind at all. You're in a state of siege. And in that state, as it falls away, you actually feel love as something palpable. And the concern of others is something palpable. Because as you said, my home, my library, the hieroglyph of the human soul, this painted studio of mine that I began on 9/11, when the towers came down in New York, I started painting. And then 17 years, because that's when the fire hit later, not on 9/11, but 11/9, that's when the fire came to the door. And it was a baptism of fire because it stripped away. And that's why I try to tell people, keep your anger at others down. The library here says the rage, because think of my home, it's right at the end of the country. The fire reached the coast. Neighbor is angry with neighbor, hating neighbor. And it's saying this is destroying community. Realize you are trees. There's nowhere to run. Trust your roots. Honor not how others are like you, but they too are dealing with the difficulties of raising a family and figuring out how to get through this world. So if you honor that, don't impose, you look back to where you live, what you love. And I feel like that was the proof of the fire. This Shumash land, this ancient sacred land I live on, rose up. The prayers of everyone was palpable. And it started to say that the fire is upon us. It's real and it's raging. But it's how we approach it and begin to honor the things we can't see and to trust the energies we can't know directly. But we start to trust them. And they say, good. And as a performer, you can't see what to trust. You don't know what to trust. You build to a point where you say, I just have to give myself to it. And I feel that that's why we're being trained by all of these things, that this is a very mythic time. And all of my work in an interesting way helps put things in context where it rises above political differences and begins to say, these are human stories that have always plagued us, haunted us. And I feel that the key I have gotten, because my work is about home, and I say like the Wizard of Oz, it's funny, a tornado showed up at my home, and I always tell a Wizard of Oz story here. But like the Wizard of Oz, think about it. Dorothy didn't want to be stuck in Oz. She wanted to know there was color and imagination in other worlds. But immediately when she thought she couldn't get back, she wanted to. And she came back to the black and white world. She came back to the difficulties. And I kind of feel that we're being taught the same thing. It's not that we want to get out of the difficulties. We just want to be reminded that there's more behind the difficulties than darkness. And that's why I've always felt the arts remind us. Because the artist doesn't get out, the musician, the poet, the dreamer, they don't get out of the darkness. They do something with it. And they say, in spite of this, let's bring something to the table. Like when you write a song, Ron, and you speak with your heart, it's beyond politics. It's because it's love. And love says, that's the universal. this is what gives people permission not to be so angry at each other. So
For me,
yeah.
for me, all the politics involved in these daily things that we are all seeing, we have to collectively overcome and project exactly what you said, the love of humanity, the love of spirit, the love of creativity. And we have to embrace those things, because ultimately those things are the things that drive and soothe our human condition.
Yes.
Now, it doesn't mean you're being unaware of what's going on or any of that stuff, or living in some utopian mindset. It's just love. I don't want to sound like a 60s cliche, but love can solve a lot of things for a lot of people. And it's a very, very powerful entity, love.
And
It's, I believe it to be more powerful than the opposite, the negative.
yeah.
Even though we're all surrounded by so much of the negative, we have to express and put out more and more love. We're having more fires up north now in California that are just outrageous. And I couldn't help, my daughters are going through that right now. They're both up there. And I couldn't help but think of what you have gone through, what you survived because of your sheer will to power through it. And you weren't standing in front of your door going, I love everything and all. No, you were fighting your fucking heart out. Everything.
Yeah, this is the love with a capital L. This is a grail knight rather than a cowardly soldier, meaning it is not that you fear the dragon. It's that you don't assume you can fight all the dragons. You realize yours is to concentrate on what you can actually engage and what is directly engaging you. It seems like we're in a time that's saying, and this is why I tell people that in sacred texts, if I had to distill them all down to one line, become a knower of the real. Meaning when things draw you in to anger and that are not yours, pull back, like pulling back on board. It's not that you ignore it any more than a sea captain ignores a sea squall. You just don't define yourself by it or being against it. It is weather. It's how do I navigate? And that's why I feel constantly now, everything in me, and this is what the great lesson of the fire was. It was that the key of intimacy is what has been triggered. And that the rage that got us here, in a sense, brought us across the country, brought us to this place of what now? That the energy is so great, like the library, if you opened up the books, they'd all burn. But it says, take this fire, turn it down, allow it to incubate a sense that this is not anything new. The human condition always experiences this great sense of disappointment, a great fear of a lack of any meaning. But if we start to say maybe that's what defines us, is that we're actually heroic because we keep coming into the human story, never knowing why, never knowing what, never knowing how, but we still say, I'm willing to live this life. And when my dad died, and this was really moving, I saw his book of life being squeezed, meaning it was as if all of the words had floated into the waters of time, and Joseph, my dad, could have been anything, like interpreting a score or a symphony. But as his life ended and the book was squeezed, I saw the book of his life being pushed on a shelf. And it said, but now it's been lived. And it struck me, we don't realize it. It's not art, it's not what you do, it's how you approach things. It's the willingness to realize that the question isn't just the question about you. It's this greater question about what does it mean to be human? And if we can honor our story, meaning it's such a great question, that it needs all of its sides, all of its characters, just like a really good theater piece, not to burn the theater down, but to leave those who are observant with a sense of, in this complexity, is a greater empathy and compassion for the difficulty of the human story, because we didn't come here to leave. We came here to finally be home. And that's really why, again, my work is about home. How do we bring the myths home? How do we tell a story that says friendship is the key?
Anger and hate have never solved anything.
They're
And what you said before, if you get to a point where you are angry and hateful in any way, pull it back and look at why you're feeling that way, and don't react based on that, because that will go nowhere. It will go absolutely nowhere. We have too much hate and fear and anger happening, and it's skewing everybody's perspective of stuff. So I implore everybody to just pull back and realize that hate and anger might be coming from you. You think it's coming from somebody else, but what are you giving back? Are you reflecting like a mirror? Are you feeding into and feeling that energy, and it's making you fearful and hateful and all? It's a very big esoteric question, but it's so real in our lives now. So real. And it's all in the surface. It's right on the surface. It's like oil on water. It's right there, and we can slide on it or not, depending on how you walk and how you run through this world right now. So
and it's almost that feeling of, as I say, going from karate to jujitsu to aikido, where you're going from this type of action to allowing, my joke is, going from I'll kick your ass to I'll let you kick your own ass. I've got too much to do.
If you get angry enough, you're to kick your own ass.
Yeah, exactly. I'm done with that. That's why I feel that a lot of this is, because think of a martial art, mental martial art, an etiquette of energy that says everything is there. It's what you pay attention to, because certain energies will betray you, because if you set that fire, you will immediately set fire to yourself. That's why one of the things I do up here is I have people stand at a mirror, and I say, notice when you look in a mirror, you can see yourself. Now, if people are standing behind you when you're looking in a mirror, you think you're looking at them because you're looking at yourself looking in that direction. Now, think if you thought you were looking at your enemy in front of you, but they're actually behind you. If you took, let's say, a Molotov cocktail and tried to throw it at a mirror because that's where you saw them, it wouldn't hit what you thought you were aiming at. The fire would come back on you. And that's one of the things that we realize now is self-immolation, where people throw out anger and it comes back as a wave. And
it sounds like you're talking about the nature of energy.
Exactly.
The nature of energy. The nature of energy is what you throw out will come back to you in one way or another. And how do you want to receive it? Do you want to receive it? Why are you throwing it out anyway? It's that's what you said. Kung Fu. Kung Fu is what energy you throw at me, I will take and recycle back to you.
And
right?
Can I interject my experience with you and Kung Fu? I'm sitting in the windowsill, and Ron, who's always been like this Kung Fu master, he walks like a cat and all that. He comes over and he goes, oh, and he literally touches me on my chest, and it felt like a punch, and it lifted me almost out the window. And at that point, and then a few weeks later, we were walking in the park. We used to prank each other a little, and I ran to the bushes ahead, and I thought, I'm going to jump out and scare him. And the experience in the window said, Leigh, that might not be a great idea. You don't want to scare that man. He's got powers you don't quite understand.
Let me tell a story of being at your house. You mentioned the Chumash area that you live in. It's the land that surrounds you and that you are on. Yeah. Something very interesting happened at Leigh's house that caught my attention. Definitely, a bunch of people were all of our friends were upstairs in the room he's in right now. I went downstairs by myself. And I walked into the living room, the downstairs living room, and I stopped. I stopped because what I felt was this cold just enveloped me. And I felt like everything was touching me. I felt this incredible energy that happened. And I was by myself, and every hair on my body stood up. You guys can't see what's happening right now. I'm just reliving it with thinking about it. And it stopped me and it took my breath away because something was happening. And I went upstairs. I went, Leigh, can you come down here? And he went, okay. He came down and I went, I can't even describe what just happened. Can you tell me what's going on? And I didn't know that they were on this Indian sort of thing, that this sacred ground that, and he went, oh yeah, okay. And he kind of said a few words to kind of calm things down, but I went, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
He went, you felt a presence of a spirit, of many spirits, actually, several spirits coming up through wherever. Yeah. And he explained it. And I'm not going to try to delve into the explanation or what actually happened, other than it was an incredible energy that happened. Yeah. And I've never forgotten it, of that, because I'm very sensitive to that. Right, I'm extremely sensitive, and I've gotten even more sensitive to it. Yeah. But that was amazing. Yeah. That was amazing. But you knew what it was. You knew what it was, and you just said, you kind of said a few words like, okay, everybody can calm down. All the spirits that are around us, just chill out.
Yeah. Okay, that's enough. Yeah. No, about your friend.
Enough.
No, but to the spirit. I mean, it's like, yeah, you're right. It's that feeling though of it was my grandmother a while before had seen a figure there. And what's interesting, Ron, is that I think, because I have to, one of the strange things about this garden that has grown here, this hieroglyph of the human soul, the work on the archetypes, I do feel that there is a rapport of the land itself, that this Shumash land, these qualities, like you felt, were here, and they needed to have almost like a type of allowance, an organization, because now the energies are really calm. They're not like that. Because I remember your hair was standing straight up, and your pupils, it was, and we could feel it as well. There was a very, what they call a cold spot. There was a feeling, and it was a vortex, right, near the brick mantle. But those questions and those conversations, because it's dealing with what one must trust very deeply, a type of deep intuition that comes from the land, and comes from a willingness of what we think of in theater or even music, not even music, but in music as well, which is creative play. That oftentimes something starts to reveal itself. And these energies, a bit like also, I have to say, when my mom died and my grandma died and my dad died, there were experiences that helped me realize that we sort of learn a certain utility set of tools, and they keep us in sort of a given experience. But what you experience, and when we experience things outside of this norm, we either keep it like this, or we have to develop ways to deal with these energies. And I've always found that conversation, a little generosity, a little insistence, a little offering, is a very therapeutic way to create a relationship with qualities that you don't have to define, but if you honor, oftentimes they go away. And I think it's our fear, and this is part of going back to about people being so angry. We'll realize and are realizing that many times the antidote to what we are afraid of or what is unfamiliar is taking a breath and addressing it, not turning away from it. As I talked to the fire directly, and it said in the beginning, are you leaving or staying? And I said, stand. And it told me inwardly, that's all I need to know. And the rest was choreography of what Carla and I realized were a string of not big miracles, but little miracles. And I almost feel like these are the tools that let us live in a just a more holistic environment. And I think because you are so sensitive to those energies, you know, and that's why trees, right?
I've always been that way. Since I was a little kid, I would see the ghost that was in the house I grew up in. I would see her. She was a woman who would pass by many times during my youth. She would pass by and I would see her. I knew she was a ghost because it was a transparent entity. She wasn't just full on 100%. Now we call it, what do you call that thing in Photoshop? Not transparency, but anyway, she's half transparent. I can see through, but I can see her figure. So I saw her many times in my youth, and I knew that I had the ability to see other things. That turned into even more so that I won't get into now because it's too long a subject. But it's an awareness of other dimensions, which I know you totally know and see. You and I have had how many discussions on traveling out of your body, being able to do that, which you did successfully many years ago. We used to have those conversations of you being able to literally go out of your body and go to other places and experience other things. And it was amazing. It wasn't a scary thing at all. It was a wonderful transformation of being in this earthly body on Earth here and going other places. And I have since experienced the same thing. I actually experienced one of those in our first film we did in Sicilia. I went out of my body one of the first times that I actually experienced it. When we met. But you have had extraordinary experiences, and I love that. I love that experience of other dimensions being involved in this life. And you have to be aware of it. You have to be aware of it. You have to be open to that, to be affected, to experience it. And it's not just a new world age.
No, it's
60s,
the hill, so to speak.
60s hippie bullshit stuff.
No.
It's something that actually is possible, of something in our brain allows us to escape and go to another dimension. So I love that. I've always loved that. And I've experienced it. Go ahead.
No, I just feel that this empathetic field is essential. You know, when we perform an ensemble, when we trust, when you riff with your fellow musicians, you're giving yourself into the intentionality of the music itself. You're becoming an instrument. You're getting out of the way. And I think the sensitivity to these things is that you know, Einstein said it best. You know, you can look at life as a miracle, or you can look at life as not a miracle. I prefer to look at it as a miracle. You know, the sense of that we are in a time where of course you can cynically say, oh, none of that it's nonsense, but you also have to look at the quality of your life if you're saying things like that. Because it is those that are out gardening, talking to their flowers, enjoying the bees, maybe talking to their cats and dogs, that feel a type of fullness, not a type of I am isolated and completely disconnected. And the more we trust that, like during the fire, the star pines here told me we're not fuel, we're allies. And the garden itself, when I was in it, it said, I could feel it. I could feel it. It told me, it said that everything in the garden is alive. Everything living wants to live. You're the part of the garden that's in motion. We have your back. And I thought, wow, if you go back to ancient times and indigenous cultures, it's not the distance from these things or the distrust, nor needing them like in a new age sense to be more meaningful than they are. But it's like living in a very narrow range of what is possible, and understanding that until we allow ourselves to release ourselves from our own unwillingness to give ourselves permission to say, maybe this is possible, then we open to these things. But the point I feel in these deep experiences we have, and my lucid dreams, my out-of-body experiences, They became very helpful in my book, Tarot Revisioned, because I was able in this conversation about archetype in the 17 years I took to do the drawing, 22 drawings and write it, that all of the inner experiences started to reveal that we are an operating system, like a piano. And we usually use just a couple of keys, but there's actually a keyboard. And if we understand how these different energies feel, like your sensitivity, think about this as a musician, as an actor. You have a broader field of sensitivity because you have to listen with your body. You have to listen with other qualities. This, I think, is essential for who and what we are, because no one insists that you are one way or another, and only you can give yourself permission to say, I allow myself now to say, yes, let me listen inwardly, let me listen in nature. And it's not to suddenly be St. Francis and, it's actually just taking a breath, shifting one's energy, and realizing a lot of things are in conversation with us, but we don't have time to listen because we're too busy doing.
Is there something you could, what would you say to people who wanted to experience or to pursue one of these extraordinary experiences that we just referred to, something that would allow your mind to be open to experience an out of body or to see things that are in another dimension? I don't know. I don't know anything to allow. I can't teach that. I can't teach what I have seen. I can't teach what I know. Yeah. I can't teach any of that because it's very internal for me.
Yeah.
And I don't even really talk about it much because people will think I'm just fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. But I know what I have seen in my life, and I know what I still see. But I can't say, oh, I do this and this, and then it happens. I can't say that. So I think you have a much better grip on being able to tap into a consciousness than I do. For me, it's just I have to do it. But you seem to be very good at it.
But I also feel, because the point when something becomes art, it's literally say, here, let me draw you a picture. I almost feel that this quality of consciousness itself was trying to translate, because art allows us not to know what we're looking at, not to be instructed, but to be inspired, to allow us to breathe. Because I don't think oftentimes people want to have altered states experience because they don't like the state they're in. But if we realize, like from an actor's point of view, you are your character. It's not to escape that character, but to trust it and to realize that for some, it will be getting a bowl of water and a flower in the water and just contemplating that and allowing the mind to soften, allowing oneself to not be swept away, but to actually go deeper and deeper, as if to open from within. And I like to say that art, or my paintings, are actually breath, because as one breathes and paints, the breath is captured. So all of the considerations, all the breath, all of the qualities are finally made stationary in a work of mine. And I feel like that's why if a person, because they're not meant as statements, they're meant as qualities of these other, like the multidimensional nature, unexpectedly, multidimensional nature of the glasses and my work in the hieroglyph of the human soul. It says, because the glasses themselves say, if you look at me one way, look at me again, I'm not a statement, I'm a conversation. And I feel like that's what I mean about philosophy. In a sense, it's not philosophy in a type of complexity, but philosophia, the love of wisdom. And art, music, poetry, these things don't insist that we look at things one way. And as a matter of fact, this is our problem. We're trying to see things one way. We're being too literal. And it says, but if you do this and look at it in more than one way, then you'll trust yourself. And the experiences, like you're saying, Ron, that you've had and I've had, will grow naturally, not unnaturally. Because you don't want to be swept away by your imagination. You want to build a bridge of trust that lets you finally know that you're not just making this stuff up, but it's up to you to see how it fits. And as you integrate it, it becomes, in a way, that ingredient that makes life that much more rich. And that's why I don't think you can teach these things any more than you can teach someone how to love, because one doesn't really know how to do it oneself. It comes out of you and you follow its dictates.
Leigh, thank you. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's wonderful. It's insane that we are only talking here on our broadcast.
Yes. My dear friend, so good to see you so privately.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's just like you and me talking, almost.
We would, if we were in California, if we were able to be home, we would drive our motorcycle down to Leigh's and hang out with them. And we're kind of sequestered here for the time being. We don't know when we're going to be able to come back, but we're doing stuff here that's very creative, and we're pursuing our interests here. It's been great. It's been actually quite nice.
Yeah,
so,
but I see of you guys, you look beautiful, and I love the sharing of all the dream on this, think on this, wonder about that, because in these times, the things that make us say yes rather than yikes are the key. So I really just wanted to say it's been such a pleasure. I always love us. We just pick up on the comma we left off on anyway.
You and I sometimes have gone years without actually saying anything to each other, but it never stops. The conversation never stops.
No, it's timeless. We just get together in the body and go, hey, it's good to see you in this way. Well, bless you. Thank you so much.
Please, everybody has been very, very kind. They're very interested. I implore you to look up Leigh McCloskey's website, just LeighMcCloskey.com, and just go further and delve into it a bit. It's going to be a fascinating journey that you guys will not regret. But I want to say, oh master, what is the meaning of life?
Life is a deep well.
After all this, life is just a deep well. That's it.
You mean life isn't a deep well?
Leigh, if you grew your beard like down a couple of feet, like
ZZ Top,
it would be so perfect. It would be, so you could do that as you talk. Yes. I love you, my friend.
Ciao.
I love you. I love you more than if Leigh. Okay, I will probably tread on hopefully nobody's feet, but Leigh and I went. We've all been we both of us deemed ourselves terminally heterosexual. But if we were gay, there'd be no question.
Couple, you gotta say.
We make a beautiful couple. There'd be no question.
Yeah,
so we're
like that knight in armor thing in the picture I posted. That's
my friend. You are it. You are the go-to for my. Has nothing to do with being gay and all. You're the go-to for my sort of philosophical and my spiritual being here on Earth. And I have gone to Leigh many times during my my brief time on Earth to ask his opinion, and he's the guy I go to consult with. So I have all respect and all love, and I send you nothing but that.
It is mutual, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not gonna cut you out of this. I'm gonna say goodnight to everybody, and with Leigh, say thank you for joining us. I hope it's been good. I hope it's been informative. This has definitely been the longest RonnsGarage I've ever done.
How did that happen?
I kind of had a feeling about that because there's no stopping this. It's hard to stop now. We could go for another 3 hours, and I imagine most people would probably stay with us. But I want to let you get on with your day. I want to let everybody get on with their days. It's about 10:30 at night for most everybody in Europe. But I want to just say thank you to everybody who's joined us. I've been watching the comments go by. What's cute, Lee, is they comment to themselves. They talk with each other while we are talking. It's very cute to watch. It's very cute.
I need better eyes to watch that. Going, what the heck? But thank you, everybody that tuned in as well. That's wonderful. So bless you.
Thank you, guys. I give blessings to all of you. As I always end, just say, keep calm, keep sane, keep your love flowing in this crazy ass world we're living in right now, with all the crap happening around us. Keep your sanity and keep your focus, and don't give up your aspirations of what you want to achieve. So I send you guys all love and blessings. Lee, stay with me a second. And I say good night and thank you guys for joining me. Please share. And I send you guys blessings. We will see you next week. And I love you all.